I've always been a girl with a big appetite, and not just for food. Last night, I finally got a taste of the good stuff. When I opened my eyes this morning, there was a man in my bed. A soft, chubby one. Other girls have one-night stands with chiseled and handsome CEOs. I woke up next to a guy who looked like a teddy bear version of a corporate manager. If I looked at him from a certain angle, I was practically the archetype of a sketchy middle manager. My brain slowly pieced together the chaotic events of last night. To my absolute horror, I realized I was the one who made the first move. Just as I was trying to figure out how to escape without waking him, a translucent glowing text box drifted across my field of vision. It looked exactly like a live chat feed from a streaming app. Bring right in the air. Oh no. The male lead is no longer pure. He's so insecure about his weight. And the heroine was supposed to save him. With her unconditional love. How did this random side character steal him away? Don't underestimate him just because he's chubby. He has incredible stamina. Totally. He only gained weight because of the medication he had to take. After that accident, he used to be a gorgeous, wealthy heir. Actually, he went looking for the heroine yesterday and overheard her complaining about how fat he is. He went to the club to drown his sorrows and ran into the side character instead. But who could resist her? She has a killer body and looks just as gorgeous as the heroine. I tried to slide out of bed silently, but my muscles screamed in protest. My foot caught in the heavy duvet, and I tumbled back onto the mattress. Before I could hit the floor, a pair of large, warm hands caught my waist, pulling me securely against a broad chest. I felt him stir, his body reacting with a sudden, unmistakable rush of morning energy. A shiver ran down my spine. The chat feed flared up with renewed excitement. This is definitely R-rated territory. Her body is insane. Wait, why did my screen go black? Let me watch. The sheer embarrassment made my face burn a furious red. According to the chat, he was the male lead. And I was just the disposable side character who sent you. His voice cut through the silence, cold and sharp. I'm this fat, and you still laid a hand on me. I pulled the blanket tight around my chest, screaming to the far edge of the bed. A wave of sheer vulnerability washed over me, and my eyes welled with tears. I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice trembling. I offended a major client at work. My boss brought me to the club last night to apologize. They tried to force me to drink to get me wasted. I only remember escaping the VIP room after that. Everything is a blur. My boss had wanted that contract at any cost. Promised me a 20% raise if I just complied and kept the client happy. I desperately needed the job, so I thought I could just outdrink the man. I didn't realize they had slipped something into my glass. A flash of guilt flickered across his eyes. He sat up, his back to me as he began pulling on his clothes. I misjudged you, he said quietly. I'll look into it. If what you're saying is true, I will take responsibility. Once he was dressed, he turned back to look at me, seeing my small shivering form huddled under the sheets. His gaze softened, his mind clearly drifting back to the intimacy of the night. I looked at my clothes scattered on the floor. They were torn to shreds. Can you help me buy some clothes? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He rubbed his nose, clearing his throat as he pulled out his phone to text his assistant. The silence in the room became suffocating. I buried myself under the covers, avoiding his gaze entirely. Within 20 minutes, a bag of clothes arrived. He laid his business card, a package of pills, and a black credit card on the nightstand. These are the emergency contraceptives. My card and the clothes. There's $30,000 on this card. The PIN is 6 zeros. Call me if you need anything. Pills. I poked my head out from under the blanket, panic rising in my chest. What pills? Are you sick? Do you have something? His face flushed with annoyance. It's a morning after pill. You were drugged. If you get pregnant, we don't know how those chemicals might affect your body or a fetus. I let out a long breath, relief washing over me. You don't need to take responsibility. I mumbled. I'll take the medicine. The chat feed popped up again. She's so naive, it's almost painful. If I were her, I'd make him take responsibility. She just got fired, and she's got nothing. I feel so bad for her. She's beautiful, but so helpless. He's just a clumsy sweetheart. Honestly, it's kind of sweet that they were each other's first. My cheeks burned even hotter. These comments were entirely too honest. He stared at me for a long moment before speaking. Put your clothes on. I'm taking you to the hospital. Why? I asked, genuinely confused. I need to make sure you're healthy, and we need a toxicology report. Don't you want justice? I looked down, a familiar sense of defeat settling over me. If I go to the police, I'll lose my job for sure. I was pretty, yes. But I only had an associate degree from a community college. It had taken me months to find a job that paid enough to cover my rent. I couldn't afford to lose it. God had given me a beautiful face, but he hadn't given me the courage or the resources to protect it. I just wanted to survive. I'll handle the job situation, he said firmly. Just tell me, do you want justice? I hesitated, then slowly nodded. After a quick shower, I pulled on the fresh clothes. The side character is literally prettier than the heroine. This is wild. The comments really had no filter. When I stepped out of the bathroom, I looked at his tall, imposing figure. Under all that bulk, he carried himself with an innate authority, though I still couldn't quite see him as the typical romance novel billionaire. He cleared his throat. My name is Beckett Harrington. Let's go. But as we reached the elevator, my knees buckled. My legs were trembling so badly, I had to lean against the wall. Beckett noticed immediately. His cheeks turned a light pink as he reached out, bedding me by my waist. I'll have my assistant buy you some flat shoes, he murmured. I kept my head down, my face burning as he guided me into the elevator. Up close, he smelled incredible. After leaving the hotel, we drove straight to the hospital. He arranged for a blood draw and had the doctor check if the drugs had left any lingering damage. I was already exhausted, and losing blood made me feel utterly drained. Throughout the process, it was quiet, occasionally looking at his phone to coordinate work. Once we left the clinic, he turned to me. I've secured the security footage from the club. The manager is willing to testify. And a staff member confirmed they saw your drink being spiked. A sudden warmth bloomed in my chest. A complete stranger was fighting for me. The blood test will serve as concrete evidence. I'm taking you to the police station now to file a report. I've already contacted my lawyer to handle your company. I nodded, my voice small. Thank you. Don't worry about it. Technically, I was a victim, too. I bit my lip, too embarrassed to respond. For the report, he added, we'll tell them I'm your boyfriend. With Beckett's help, the police report was filed smoothly. As we walked out of the station, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my manager. Don't bother coming in today. You're fired. A wave of bitter injustice washed over me. Beckett looked down at my phone, then at me. To prevent them from trying to harass or threaten you, you should stay at my place for now. I'll resolve your company's contract issues this afternoon. And once that's done, we can have a proper talk. I opened my mouth to decline. I didn't want to be a burden, but the chat feed flared up instantly. Maisie, do not go back to your apartment. It's dangerous. The big boss of her company was the one who set the whole thing up. He wanted her as his mistress. If they find her alone, she's finished. Those corporate sharks won't let her go easily. The rejection died in my throat. He had already crossed the ultimate line anyway. Staying at his place for a couple of days couldn't hurt. And if things went south, sleeping with him again was a far better alternative than being cornered by those predators. Okay, thank you. He wasn't the arrogant billionaire I expected. He was actually incredibly decent. Beckett drove me to a massive estate nestled in a highly secured, hated community. Marie, Beckett called out as we entered, before turning to me with an embarrassed look. He realized he still didn't know my name.
Marie, I'm Maisie.
Maisie Albright. Miss Albright will be staying with us for a while. Get told the housekeeper. Please get her settled. Of course, sir. I watched him leave, then followed Marie to a beautifully appointed guest room. After a warm bath, I muted my phone and sank into the mattress. The bed was incredibly comfortable. Exhausted from the night before, I closed my eyes and was instantly pulled into sleep. The memories of his heavy breathing and strong arms kept drifting through my mind. For a big guy, he sure had stamina. I mumbled into the pillow, my face burning in the dark. When I woke up, the first thing I saw on my phone was a bank notification. $15,000 had been deposited into my account. Then came an apologetic text from the HR director at my old company. She claimed she hadn't managed her staff properly. The supervisor who had set me up had been arrested. The company was offering me a $12,000 emotional distress settlement, plus 3 months of severance pay, over $27,000. I sat up staring at the screen. I had never seen this much money in my life. I had graduated college a year ago. My first job ended abruptly when the creepy owner tried to touch me. I slapped him, and he refused to pay my final salary. I grew up in a small town. Because I developed faster than the other girls, I was constantly whispered about by middle school. There were rumors that I was a provocateur. To protect myself, I wore oversized clothes, never touched skirts, and kept myself completely covered. Yet I still ended up here. A soft knock sounded at the door. I opened it to find Beckett standing there. Have you been crying? He asked gently. I quickly wiped my cheeks. Just received the settlement from the company. Thank you. It's only what you deserve. An awkward silence settled between us. Marie said, "You haven't eaten all day. Are you feeling unwell?" The sudden warmth in his voice made my heart race. I stole a quick glance at him. Just a little sore. I've been sleeping. The chat feed immediately started teasing.
Ah,
They didn't sleep until 5 a.m. Of course she's sore. People always say weight affects performance, but clearly the male lead has no issues. I wished I could shut these comments off. Looking at Beckett, I felt dizzy. "Come down for dinner," he said, his expression slightly strained. The dining table was covered in my favorite comfort foods. I was so hungry, I forgot my manners, digging in happily. But then I noticed he was barely eating. Just watching me, I froze, slowly putting down a strawberry. I was just really hungry. I don't normally eat this much. Growing up, I never had luxury meals. After my parents passed away, when I was 14, my aunt took custody of me. "Did you not get enough to eat?" Beckett asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "No, I'm full," I whispered, embarrassed. He smiled, a genuine, warm expression that entirely transformed his face. "Maisie," Beckett said, leaning back.
we need to talk about last night.
I swallowed hard, my heart hammering against my ribs. "I need you to take responsibility,"
He said. What?
I stared at him, utterly bewildered. Beckett cleared his throat, trying to look businesslike. "Marry me." I stared at him, my spoon frozen halfway to my mouth. The air in the dining room suddenly felt impossibly thin. "Marry you?" I repeated, the words tasting bizarre on my tongue. "Beckett, we met yesterday." "Technically, we met because I was out of my mind on spiked rum and took advantage of you." Across the table, Beckett's fingers tapped a slow, measured rhythm against his linen napkin. He didn't look like an impulsive man. He looked like someone who had calculated 3 different contingencies before even bringing up the topic. "It's not as sudden as it sounds," he said, his deep voice carrying a quiet authority. "Or perhaps it is, but it solves 2 immediate, pressing problems. Yours and mine." Before I could ask what he meant, the translucent chat feed flared back into life right in front of my face, fluttering like an energetic ticker tape. What? Marriage speedrun strategy. Wait, in the original novel, Beckett was supposed to propose to Chloe Vance. After 3 years of unrequited longing and losing 50 pounds. Chloe is going to lose her mind when she finds out the chubby heir she rejected just got snatched up. Look at Maisie's face. She's so confused. "Girl, say yes." He has 3 private islands and a heart of gold. I blinked through the glowing text, forcing my attention back to the solid, living man sitting across from me. "What problem of yours could I possibly solve?" I asked softly, setting my spoon
Down.
"I'm an unemployed community college graduate with a ruined reputation and $15,000 in my bank account. You own, well, whatever all this
Is.
I gestured toward the vaulted ceilings and crystal chandeliers. Beckett didn't laugh. His warm hazel eyes met mine with a raw, unflinching honesty that made my pulse stumble. "My family's board of directors is meeting next month," Beckett explained.
Calmly.
"My grandfather's will stipulates that to assume full voting control of Harrington Global, I must be married and settled. Until recently, my family assumed I would marry Chloe Vance. Yesterday, I learned, quite explicitly, that Chloe finds my current physical state repulsive." A flicker of self-deprecating hurt crossed his features, faint but sharp. She told her friend she would rather join a convent than let a glorified beanbag touch her. My hands clenched into fists beneath the table. A sudden wave of cold anger washed over me. A glorified beanbag? How could anyone look at this attentive, solid, gentle man and see only his weight? "She's a fool." The words slipped out of my mouth before I could filter them. Beckett paused, startled by the venom in my tone. The faint pink tint returned to the tops of his ears. "Be that as it may," he continued softly, "I have no desire to beg for anyone's affection, nor do I have the time to find a conventional partner before the board meeting. If I marry someone outside our social circle, my relatives will try to dismiss it as a farce, unless the marriage is backed by an ironclad personal connection. Last night, we were each other's firsts, Maisie."
You.
Didn't look at me with disgust. "You didn't treat me like a compromise." I felt my cheeks ignite. I couldn't exactly tell him that last night, in my drug-hazy state, I had thought he was the softest, warmest, most wonderful refuge in the world. "I can offer you complete financial security," Beckett added, misinterpreting my silence. A penthouse in the city, an allowance, immunity from your former employer, and full access to top-tier legal and educational resources. In return, I need a wife who is honest, grounded, and willing to stand beside me. For 2 years. After that, if you wish to leave, you will depart with a multi-million-dollar settlement and a fresh life. 2 years contract marriage. That's the classic trope. Don't do a contract. Beckett, you're already smitten. Look at how he's clutching his napkin. Maisie, accept it. Protect your man from that snake, Chloe. I looked at Beckett. Despite his imposing height and corporate poise, there was a subtle, defensive tension in his broad shoulders, as if he was bracing himself for me to laugh in his face, to tell him he was too large, too awkward, or too strange to be loved. My entire life, people had judged me solely by my body, assuming I was easy, foolish, or cheap. Beckett was being judged by his body, too stripped of his dignity despite his intelligence and kindness. In that moment, a strange, fierce instinct took root in my chest. I don't want a multi-million-dollar allowance, I said clearly. Beckett's face fell slightly. I see. I want a job, I interrupted. A real one. I want to work, to learn, and to earn my keep. If I'm going to be your wife, I won't be a prop. And I won't let your family or Chloe Vance walk over either of us. Beckett stared at me, his eyes widening in genuine astonishment. Slowly, the guarded tightness around his mouth melted away, replaced by a smile so warm and bright it felt like morning sunlight hitting glass. Agreed, he said, his voice dropping an octave, rich and steady. Partner. The next 2 weeks flew by in a blur of legally binding documents, quiet dinners, and rapid transformations. We kept the civil ceremony deliberately simple. A high court judge came to the estate on a Tuesday morning. I wore a simple ivory silk dress that hugged my waist and flowed over my hips, while Beckett wore a tailored dark navy suit that made him look broad, powerful, and impeccably regal. When he slid the platinum band onto my finger, his thumb brushed the back of my hand, sending a tiny electric shock straight in my arm. Aha, they're married. Look at how he's holding her hand. He's so gentle despite his size. Warning. Chloe Vance has just landed at the city airport. Drama incoming. In 3, 2, 1. The live chat hadn't lied. 3 days after our marriage was registered, the invitation to the annual Harrington Holdings Gala arrived. It was to be held at the Grand Ballroom of the Grand Regent Hotel, the premier event of the city's financial elite. You don't have to go if you feel uncomfortable, Beckett told me that evening. In his study, he was sitting behind a heavy mahogany desk, reviewing financial reports. The lamplight bathed his thick dark hair and soft jawline in a golden glow. I walked over, carrying a tray of chamomile tea I'd asked Marie to prepare. Setting it beside his paperwork, I looked down at him. Over the past fortnight, I had learned a lot about Beckett. I knew he took 3 pills every morning for his post-accident nerve damage, medication that altered his metabolic chemistry and caused his body to hold on to weight. I knew he preferred dark chocolate over milk chocolate, that he read history biographies before sleeping, and that he held the door open for every single staff member in the house. He was the furthest thing from a sketchy middle manager. He was a man holding an empire on his shoulders while carrying a quiet, unhealed scar in his heart. I'm going, I said firmly, reaching out to straighten his silk tie. We're partners, remember? Besides, I heard the catering is spectacular. Beckett chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated right through the air. Between us, his large, warm hand reached up, gently capturing my wrist. He didn't pull hard, but the gentle pressure brought me a step closer. Maisie, he murmured, his gaze tracing the outline of my face. Thank you. For what? For not hiding from me. My heart did a dizzying flip against my ribs. I looked down at his full lips, remembering the feverish, breathless heat of that night in the hotel room. He hadn't touched me intimately since then, treating me with absolute, scrupulous respect, sleeping in the master suite across the hall. But every time his eyes lingered on me, the atmosphere thickened with a simmering, unspoken tension. Before I could answer, the chat feed burst into neon text across my vision. He wants to kiss her. He's thinking about that night. KSS him, Maisie. Take the initiative like you did at the club. Wait, guys, Chloe Vance just entered the Harrington Plaza. She's coming to see Beckett before the gala. I stiffened slightly as a knock echoed from the heavy double doors of the study. Marie's voice drifted through, tight with unusual hesitation. Sir, Miss Vance is downstairs. She insists on seeing you. Beckett's hands instantly went cold against my wrist. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by an icy, distant composure. Tell her I am busy, Beckett said flatly. I'm afraid it's too late for that, Beckett, a slick, high-pitched voice echoed.
From the hallway.
The door swung open, and a woman stepped into the room. Chloe Vance was, objectively speaking, stunning. She was tall, slender as a willow branch, with straight blonde hair that fell like polished silk down her back and sharp, delicate features. She wore a tailored red designer dress that screamed luxury. She swept into the room with the supreme confidence of someone who had never been told no in her entire life. But the moment her sharp blue eyes landed on me standing next to Beckett, my hand resting near his chest, her step faltered. Who is she? Chloe demanded, her eyebrows knitting together in immediate
disdain.
She scanned me from head to toe, her gaze pausing on my simple domestic cardigan and the heavy platinum ring on my finger. Her eyes flared with disbelief. Beckett, what is the meaning of this? Why is your maid standing so close to you? I felt Beckett's grip on my hand tighten. He started to stand up, his massive frame towering over the desk, his aura instantly suffocating. Watch your tongue, Chloe. Beckett's voice was dangerously low. You are speaking to my wife. The room went dead silent. Chloe's jaw dropped. You're what? Your wife? Are you out of your mind?
She
Let out a harsh, bitter laugh, stepping closer and waving her manicured hands dramatically. Beckett, I know you were angry at me for what I said at the lounge 2 weeks ago. I was stressed. I was venting. But to go out and buy yourself a low-class substitute just to spite me? Look at her. Chloe stepped right up to me, her eyes flashing with cruel arrogance. She's just a cheap, desperate gold digger. Chloe spat out, her voice dripping with venom. Did you pick her up off the street? She doesn't even know which fork to use at a dinner table. Look at her body. She's vulgar. She looks like the kind of woman who works in a shady massage parlor. What a bitch. Slap her Maisie. Slap her into the next novel. She's mad because she realized Beckett's inheritance is locked now. The old Maisie, the girl who wore baggy hoodies in middle school to hide her curves, the girl who backed down and cried when rumors spread, would have lowered her head and let the words tear into her. But I looked at Beckett. I saw the sudden shadow of shame cross his face, as if he believed Chloe's arrival had brought this degradation upon me. He opened his mouth to call security, his face pale with fury. I didn't let him. I took a deliberate step forward, putting myself directly between Chloe Vance and my husband. Miss Vance, I said, my voice steady, smooth, and shockingly quiet. You seem to have confused a corporate office with a high school cafeteria. Chloe blinked, taken aback by my sudden confidence. What did you say? I said, I continued, tilting my chin up, staring straight into her eyes, that a woman who judges a man's worth by his waistline and another woman's worth by her dress size possesses the intellect of a goldfish and the elegance of a
alley cut.
Chloe's face turned bright red. You little insolent. My husband, I interrupted, stepping closer until Chloe was forced to back up a pace, is the most honorable, capable, and handsome man I have ever met.
While
you were busy mocking his health recovery in private, he was managing a multi-billion-dollar enterprise and quietly protecting vulnerable people from corporate corruption. You didn't reject him because he didn't fit your standards. You lost him because you weren't worthy of his presence. I gestured toward the open door. Now, if you'll excuse us, my husband and I have a gala to prepare for. Marie, please show Miss Vance out. And if she refuses to leave, call the estate security to escort her off the grounds for trespassing. Marie, who was standing in the doorway, grinned broadly. Right away, Mrs. Harrington. Chloe stood frozen, her eyes wide with humiliation and rage. She looked at Beckett, expecting him to reprimand me, but Beckett was staring at me, his eyes burning with an intense, mesmerizing light that I had never seen before. You heard my wife, Beckett said, his voice quiet, heavy, and absolute.
Get
out of my house, Chloe. With a sharp gasp of outrage, Chloe turned on her high heels and stormed out of the room, her loud footsteps echoing down the marble hallway. Silence returned to the study. My adrenaline slowly ebbed away, leaving my hands slightly trembling. I took a deep breath, suddenly realizing how bold I had just been. I had just kicked out the original heroine of the story. I turned around slowly to look at Beckett. I'm sorry if I overstepped.
I.
No, she was your childhood acquaintance. Before I could finish my sentence, Beckett moved. For a man of his size, he moved with astonishing speed. In 2 long strides he bridged the distance between us. His large, strong hands reached out, framing my face, his thumbs gently sweeping across my cheekbones. Maisie, he breathed, his voice thick with uncontainable emotion. Yes, I whispered, my breath catching in my throat. You called me handsome. I flushed scarlet, looking down at his chest. Well, it's true. Angle or no angle, you're the best-looking man in any room. Beckett let out a soft sound, halfway between a groan and a laugh, and then he lowered his head and kissed me. It wasn't the clumsy, drug-fueled kiss from the club. It was slow, deep, and intoxicatingly thorough. His lips were impossibly soft, tasting of warmth and tea, pressing against mine with a possessive, desperate sweetness that made my knees instantly give out. I reached up, wrapping my arms around his broad neck, burying my fingers in his thick dark hair. He pulled me flush against his body, his large arms wrapping around my waist, lifting me slightly off my feet to take my weight entirely.
I
Could feel the hard, solid strength beneath his tailored clothes, the rapid, hammering beat of his heart against mine.
Ea.
The kiss. The kiss. Screen going black again.
NOO.
Don't censor the best part. The male lead is completely fallen. He belongs to Maisie now. When he finally pulled back, both of us were breathless. His hazel eyes were dark, glowing with a dangerous, beautiful intensity. Tonight at the gala, Beckett whispered, his lips lingering an inch from mine, they will try to tear us down. My uncles, the press, Chloe's family. They think I am weak because I am changed. Will you stay by my side? I smiled, resting my forehead against his heavy chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. I'm not going anywhere, Beckett, I said quietly. Let's show them who really owns this city. The night of the Grand Regent Gala arrived. If the city's upper crust expected Beckett Harrington to walk in looking defeated, accompanied by a quiet, ashamed bride, they were sorely mistaken. When the massive oak doors of the grand ballroom swung open, the murmurs of 300 wealthy elite died down to a sudden, breathless quiet. Beckett walked in first, dressed in a custom charcoal gray tuxedo that emphasized his imposing height and broad shoulders. He walked with his head held high, radiating absolute power. And at his side, her arm looped securely through his was me. I wore a floor-length emerald green satin gown, custom-made by a top designer Beckett had hired 3 days prior. The gown hugged my waist, highlighting every rich curve of my body, falling into a stunning, elegant train. My dark hair was swept up in an intricate style, exposing my neck, which was adorned with a simple, brilliant diamond necklace, a Harrington family heirloom Beckett had personally placed around my neck before we left the house. Well, I shit, Maisie is a goddess. Look at Chloe Vance in the corner. Her jaw is on the floor. The side character completely annihilated the heroine. She looks like a queen. I ignored the flashing cameras and the whispers rippling through the crowd.
I
Held Beckett's arm, feeling the solid reassurance of his presence. They're staring, I murmured under my breath, keeping a bright, calm smile on my face. They're staring at you, Beckett corrected softly, leaning down slightly so his lips almost brushed my ear. You look so beautiful it's making it difficult for me to remember my opening speech. A genuine laugh escaped my lips. Focus, Mr. Harrington. As we moved through the room, several senior board members approached us. Beckett navigated the political waters with effortless brilliance, introducing me as his wife with unwavering pride. Whenever someone made a veiled, backhanded comment about his physical change or our sudden marriage, Beckett handled it with sharp, decisive wit, while I supported him with calm grace. Halfway through the evening, Beckett was called away to a private balcony by the senior chairman of the board for a final confirmation of the voting proxies. I'll be 5 minutes, he murmured, kissing the back of my hand in front of half the ballroom, causing several young heiresses to gasp. Stay near the champagne fountain.
Go, he smiled.
I'll be fine. As soon as Beckett stepped onto the balcony, the atmosphere around me shifted. I was standing near the towering champagne pyramid when a shadow fell over me.
I
turned to see Chloe Vance, flanked by 2 middle-aged men in expensive suits, her father, Arthur Vance, and Richard Harrington, Beckett's opportunistic uncle. So, This is the street urchin Beckett married, Richard Harrington sneered, examining me with cold, disdainful eyes. Unbelievable. My nephew has completely lost his senses. First he lets himself become an unsightly blob, and now he marries a nobody with no background, no family, and no pedigree. Chloe stood beside him, her arms crossed, a vindictive smirk on her face.
I
Told you, Uncle Richard. She dragged him down. She probably trapped him with some cheap trick. Arthur Vance chimed in, his voice loud enough to attract the attention of nearby
guests.
Miss Albright, or whatever your name is, you should know your place.
The
Harrington family controls billions in assets. A contract girl, like you will be, exposed in court. We've already instructed our legal team to investigate your
past.
When we find the dirt, you won't get a single penny. The crowd around us began to draw closer, sensing a massive scandal unfolding. Whispers broke out like wildfire. Is that really Beckett's new wife? I heard she was a temp worker who got fired. She's just after his money. Look at how she dressed.
Danger.
They're trying to publicly humiliate her. Maisie, don't cry. Show them what you're made of. Where is Beckett? Why is the chairman keeping him on the balcony? It's a setup. I looked at the glowing chat boxes hovering in the air. The chat was right, this was a coordinated trap. Richard Harrington had drawn Beckett away so they could break me publicly, forcing a public scene that would embarrass the family and give the board an excuse to delay Beckett's appointment. They expected me to break down. They expected a poor, uneducated girl to shrink back in shame. I set my glass of champagne down on a passing waiter's tray with a soft, precise
clink.
I stepped into the center of the circle, facing Richard Harrington, Arthur Vance, and Chloe. Mr. Harrington, I began, my voice clear, resonant, and carrying effortlessly across the quieted ballroom. You speak of pedigree and dignity, but standing here, listening to a grown man insult his nephew's health and choice of partner. In public, I see zero dignity. Richard's face darkened. How dare you? I dare, I said, stepping closer, my eyes flashing with absolute ice. Because, while you were sitting in your comfortable office, plotting how to steal voting proxies from your own blood, Beckett was recovering from a near-fatal car accident caused by a faulty brake system on a company vehicle, if I recall the corporate audit reports correctly, that fell under your direct maintenance oversight. Richard froze. His face went instantly pale. The crowd gasped. The audit of the transport division was a closely guarded internal secret, one that Beckett had shared with me during our late-night study sessions at the estate. And as for you, Mr. Vance, I turned my head, locking eyes with Chloe's father. You threaten me with legal investigations into my past? Please go ahead.
My
Past consists of working 3 jobs to pay my rent, graduating with honors, despite hardship, and maintaining my integrity. Can your daughter say the same? Or shall we discuss the sudden $2 million offshore transfer made from Vance Enterprises to a certain club manager last week, the exact same club where my former boss attempted to drug me? Chloe's eyes went wide with pure terror. Father, how does she know that? Well, I shit, Maisie is burning the house down.
queen.
Queen. SHE did her homework. She's not a side character. She's the main boss. Arthur Vance staggered back a step, sweat breaking out on his forehead. They had thought I was an ignorant, helpless doll.
They didn't realize that for the past
2 weeks, while staying at Beckett's estate, I hadn't just eaten strawberry desserts. I had spent every night reading through Beckett's corporate files, memorizing financial ledgers, and helping him cross-reference legal evidence. I was a girl with a big appetite, after all. And my appetite was no longer just for survival, it was for protecting the man who gave me a home. You speak of low class, I said smoothly, sweeping my gaze across the cowering
trio.
But true low class is using drugs, sabotage, and cheap insults to cover up your own incompetence. My husband built his reputation on intelligence and
honor.
Neither his weight nor my background alters that fact by a single fraction. Well said. A deep, commanding voice echoed from the edge of the crowd. The crowd parted instantly. Beckett walked through, his heavy footsteps firm and deliberate. But he wasn't alone. Walking beside him was the grand chairman of the Harrington board, the elderly, highly respected patriarch of the family, Lord Thomas Harrington himself. The old man, who had watched the entire exchange from the balcony landing, looked at Richard Harrington and Arthur Vance with sheer, unadulterated disgust. Richard, Lord Thomas said, his voice echoing with thunderous authority.
You
Are relieved of all corporate duties at Harrington Global, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Richard went limp. Father, please. As for Vance Enterprises, Lord Thomas continued, turning his cold gaze to Arthur Vance. Our legal team will be filing a full criminal inquiry into your attempted bribery and drugging scandal by tomorrow morning. Get out of my
sight.
Security guards moved in swiftly, grabbing Richard and the pale, trembling Vance family, dragging them out of the ballroom amidst the breathless, hushed whispers of the entire high society. When the hall cleared, Lord Thomas turned to face me. The stern old man looked at me for a long moment, then slowly lowered his head in a deep, respectful nod. Welcome to the Harrington family, Maisie, the patriarch said softly.
My
grandson has chosen extraordinarily well. The gala ended in a decisive victory. By midnight, the board had officially voted Beckett into full executive control of Harrington Global. The news swept through the financial world like a tidal wave. When our private limousine pulled up to the estate, the night air was quiet and
cool.
I stepped out of the car, feeling the exhaustion of the long night finally settling into my bones. My high heels were killing me, and as I took a step toward the front entrance, my ankle wobbled slightly. Before I could stumble, Beckett was there. Without a word, he bent down, swooped his arms beneath my knees and back, and lifted me effortlessly into his arms. Beckett, I gasped, reflexively wrapping my arms around his broad neck. Put me down, I'm too heavy. Beckett stopped on the marble steps, looking down at me in the moonlight.
His
hazel eyes were soft, brimming with an intense, quiet devotion. You are not heavy, Maisie, he said softly, his voice low and raspy. You are everything. He carried me into the house, up the grand staircase, and directly into the master bedroom. Not the guest room I had been sleeping in, but his room. He set me down gently on the edge of the massive king-sized bed. The room was illuminated only by the soft silver glow of the moon streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I sat there, my heart thumping wildly against my ribs, looking up at him as he slowly unbuttoned his tuxedo jacket and tossed it onto a chair. Across my field of vision, the glowing chat feed began to flicker. But this time, the text was soft, golden, and slowly fading. Story arc completed. Side character Maisie Albright has rewritten the plot. Male lead Beckett Harrington's happiness index, 100%. System interface shutting down. 3, 2, 1. Live happy, Maisie. You don't need a script anymore. With a final bright flash, the floating chat boxes vanished into thin air.
The streaming interface was gone.
The meta commentary was gone. There were no more audience eyes, no more predictions, no more novel tropes. There was only me and the real, solid, incredible man standing right in front
of me.
Beckett knelt down in front of me, taking off my high heels with gentle hands, rubbing my sore feet with tender care. Then he looked up, resting his hands on my knees, his face illuminated by the moonlight. Maisie, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly with a rare vulnerability. The contract, the 2-year agreement we signed. What about it? I asked softly, reaching out to trace the warm line of his
jawline.
I want to burn it, Beckett said, looking directly into my eyes. I don't want a partner for 2 years. I want a wife for the rest of my life. I fell in love with you the moment you woke up in my bed and looked at me without fear. I love your courage, your appetite for life, your kindness, and every single inch of your beautiful body. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, not tears of sadness, but a sudden, overwhelming wave of pure, radiant happiness. All my life, I had felt like an outsider, judged, isolated, and afraid of my own shadow. I had thought I was just a disposable side character in someone else's world. Beckett, I whispered, leaning forward, framing his face with my hands, bringing his lips inches from mine. You're a bit late. He blinked, startled. Late? I fell in love with you the moment you bought me flat shoes at the elevator. I smiled, a tear slipping down my cheek. Burn the contract. You're stuck with me. Forever. Beckett let out a deep, choked breath of joy. He pulled me into his arms, rolling onto the bed with me, capturing my mouth in a kiss that was no longer hesitant, no longer guarded, but filled with absolute, passionate certainty. Outside, the quiet night stretched across the city, but inside the room held safely in the warm, powerful embrace of the man who loved me completely. I knew that my real story was only just beginning.